Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the program on this radio.com at 5 o'clock on Monday, already the 20th day of April. If I say already, well, these days have been slow. One kind of runs into the other, and we head towards May and maybe a start to return sometime in the month of May, depending on what part of the country you're in. We have the NFL draft this week, obviously. Thursday night, and it will be a very welcome diversion. Obviously, it's not an event, but it is an event. It's not a game, but it is an event, and it is an important event, one that has been followed and is followed by NFL fans very, very closely. It will do spectacular ratings, as I'm sure the Jordan thing did last night because it got a lot of attention. Most of the people I asked today if they saw it, most of them at least said they saw part of it. We look for something to provide that diversion now. We obviously are hungry for sports. We haven't had anything in a long time except reruns of classic games. We'll be with you Thursday from 6 to 7, then they have a draft show after that. Then Friday from 6 to 7, they'll have a draft show after that. So we'll do two 6 to 7 shows on the draft on Thursday and Friday night on the fan after our hours on radio.com. We'll be joined by Charles Davis on the NFL in just a couple of minutes. The story today, there's more. Every day now there are rumors, and that's, hey, I made the statement yesterday morning that other than a presidential campaign, which we are just starting to get into the throes of now, very few events have more misleading information thrown about than does the NFL draft. Everyone has got an agenda. Everyone is sending out smoke screens. Everyone is sending out bogus information, fake trades. This guy they love, this guy they don't. Agents are trying to push players. There's all kinds of nonsense about a whole bunch of things, and there's always the moment. Becton and he did this guy and he did that. Tua and the Wonderlic test. That was obviously this morning. Listen, whether you were looking at the first score or the amended score, neither score was very good. There's a very divided camp on the Wonderlic. It's become more public now. The results that used to be more closely guarded. Some teams pay a lot of attention to it. Some don't. It really depends. Tua didn't score well, but I can give you some guys, and I'm not going to give you their scores, but I can tell you right now there are Hall of Fame quarterbacks who I can mention who did not do well on their Wonderlic test. So the idea that is a end-all, be-all is ridiculous, okay? It really isn't. And I'm talking about guys who were great quarterbacks. So it doesn't mean, is it nice, would you rather have someone who is who's a Rhodes Scholar candidate at your position? Yes. Do you want someone who has the talent of a Luck and his brain? Yes, but that's a rare player. It really is. So I don't make such a big deal. Everything is a big deal now in the draft, but I don't make that big a deal about his Wonderlic score. I really don't. But now you have the idea that he has medical issues, the idea that now he didn't score well, to be fair, on his Wonderlic. His first test was reported as a 13. His second test is reported as a 19. Neither one is good. Like I said, eye a beholder as to how important it really is. But you have a quarterback here who's got tremendous talent, comes from a great program, has played in a million big games, who has had multiple injury issues, comes off a massive hip injury, has not been able to give teams as much hands-on as they would have liked. We're leading up to this draft in a very different way than we do with most drafts because information about individual players is not there. The world's in lockdown, so we're in a very different place. So where he is drafted, Will somebody trade up to 3 and take him? Will something happen and he will slide? Now, sliding to me, if he got to 10 or 12, I would be stunned. Stunned. I think teams would be crazed if that were the case. I think it will be surprising if he gets to 6. Um, so we'll see what happens here. Has it have the things that have come out mitigate against him? We'll wait and see. Becton fails a drug test. Does that matter? It's not a good thing. Is it hurt him a lot? We'll see. In that block of offensive tackles, we know the draft has got 3 quarterbacks who are probably going to go in the first 6 picks. It has very strong block of wide receivers who are going to really start being hit at around 9. And it's got a block of very talented offensive tackles and a couple of guys at the top. You know, Burrow's going 1 to Cincinnati. You know, Young's going 2 to Washington. Then the draft starts with 3 and 4. Have both talked about trading that, of course, being the Lions and the Giants at 3 and 4, respectively. Then you have Ngakoue, who has done everything he could to get off Jacksonville, and now, to me, has done the thing that has to get him off the team. You have to, as a team, maintain your self-respect. When a player goes after the owner's son, he's gone too far. So you come to a point where you've done everything you can to turn the other cheek. You've done everything you can to keep the player. When it gets to this level, you trade the player. That's all there is to it. You move him. So let's see if Jacksonville could be in the market of moving a couple of disgruntled players now. Let's see what happens as they get closer to the draft. You have that. I don't know if the Beckham trades or talk of Beckham trades are real. Isn't it amazing how remember, Beckham is a guy that in New York we argued a lot because I was very anti-Beckham for years. And with each passing day, I get proved right because his statistics and his performance go down and his worth goes down. And after the next team, he'll be just another receiver because once he hits his 3rd team, the devaluation is complete. And if you notice, he knocked Manning. His performance with Eli was otherworldly compared to what it's been the last couple of years. And look at the number of touchdowns he's produced in the last 3 years versus the number of touchdowns he produced in his first 3 years. His first 25 games, he had a touchdown per game. The numbers have come staggeringly down since then. Will he be traded? I don't know. We'll see. But like I said, with each move, he becomes a devalued player. That's the way it works. So most of the talk today, I'm sure, I didn't listen to any sports talk shows, but I'm sure a lot of it had to do with the Bulls. I don't know what you really learned from last night. You rekindle what we all knew, that this Bull team was going to be back for one last dance, that they had all, be it the troika of Jordan, Pippen, and Phil Jackson, had won out their welcome. They were coming to the end, and how they handled that last season, which was the last season. And we all know that it does culminate with a topsy-turvy regular season and then obviously a championship, which they will depict over the next 8 hours. I'm sure, I didn't hear, but I'm sure the ratings were very good for the first 2 hours. There's not other things to watch. People were kind of highlighting that. I even stayed and watched it with my family rather than watch Homeland, which I am finishing up the last couple episodes of. I'm probably in the minority of that this year because it's not been as good, although it was once a classic show. They're finishing up their final season. I watched it later at night. But I'm sure it kept people's attention, the documentary. I'm sure it did. It's about a very compelling figure, one of the most compelling figures in sports that we've ever had. And it may be, for a lot of people, a very different look than what they expected out of Jordan. So, and we'll see as episodes 3 and 4 this evening, as we get a little deeper into the season and begin to move. I don't know how many are going to be regular season. Remember, Pippen doesn't come back until about, I think he missed 5. I think he missed about half the season, I'd say, that year. He was very unhappy. We know how long he was unhappy about the contract. They didn't handle the contract well. His agent didn't handle the contract well. He didn't handle the contract well. He didn't handle his injury well. None of it was handled well on any side. They should have redone his They should have redone his contract. He earned it over so many times that there comes a point where you're really punishing the player, and they did. He did sign it, but they punished him. They really did, because he deserved so much more than he was getting. It was one of the worst contracts in sports history for a long time. And his return is, I think, if I remember right around mid-season in that year. Not to give it away, we haven't gotten that far yet, but I think he played about 42 games, I think, in the regular season, something like that, about halfway through. I'm a big, as anyone knows who's been around our shows for years knows that I was a enormous Pippen supporter and always felt he was highly underrated. And he played about half that season, the regular season, if I remember right around half. So it was a while before he came back. And then we know what happened as they went, and he went. Jordan went to retirement, then finally to Washington. We know what happened with Phil, and then we know what happened as Gotti went to Houston and to Portland, and then back to Chicago for a drink of water, for a cup of coffee, whatever you want to call it, for that last little go-round, But and should have won a championship in Portland where they had that Game 7 collapse. So very interesting team, brings back good memories. And definitely worth watching, no question about it. All right, let's get to the draft, as we will for a lot of this week. Charles Davis will join us when we come back. NFL game and draft analyst Charles Davis. Charles, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks a lot, Mike. I hope you and your family are doing well,
Everybody's safe, thank God. So as we finally get to within a couple of days of the draft, there's always something going on. Today it's Tua and the Wonderlic test. How big a deal?
Not as big a deal as maybe for most, because we've seen guys with what we would call below average Wonderlicks flourish in this league. The big deal is if they feel like they can process when it comes to game time, game speed, game action. And I don't think that's been his problem at Alabama from what I can see on game tape.
So, and you're right, the great quarterbacks, and we won't list any, but great quarterbacks who we know were really poor Wonderlic guys. They're really poor, and turned out to be Hall of Fame players. So there's more than a couple of them.
No doubt about it, and you're right. We don't need to name any names, but we're talking about literally Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah,
guys.
Hall of Famers, absolutely, yes.
Who scored less than 15 on a Wonderlic?
One of them 10 that I know of, so a 10 no less. Yes, yes. So.
We know MVPs.
Yes.
With that type of number. So I'm with you on that, Mike. It's a way to give you a baseline test about different things, but if you take it as the be all end all, whether you're picking quarterbacks or you're picking employees for your company, you better get to know them a little bit more and know what you're expecting from them.
All right, from your standpoint, I've had guys on talk about it. I've had Scott Pioli on a bunch of times talk about it. A lot of different thoughts on what will be the biggest difference this year. Do you have to move up trades earlier in the draft? Do you have to stay strict to your board? Do you not take the guy who you don't have as much information on, who might be a medical or a behavioral issue? What do you think is the biggest one that will change in this draft?
I think, Mike, the ones where teams always have categories about the contingency guys, just like you mentioned at the end, medical, behavioral, things of that nature. I think you're going to make a decision about them before you go into the room, as opposed to actually debating them if it comes down to that in the room, because no one's in the room. You're all connected by TVs and phones and things of that nature. And what if the guy who knows him best, what if all during the time you're on the clock, that set goes wiggy on you? Now you can't even ask him to stand on the table or not at that moment. Things that you would get by all of us being in one room, and you can get things very quickly in that situation, make your decision. Here, I think you're going to make a lot more decisions early, similar to when coaches tell us after a game, oh, we made that decision on Wednesday that if we got a fourth down on the plus side of that field, we were going to go for it. We had a play in mind. Those sorts of decisions are going to have to come into play now. Obviously, they'll adjust as it goes on, but some of those people, you're going to probably take them out and say, we're not even going to discuss that now because we don't have the the wherewithal to do it the way we want to or the way we've done it in the past.
Talking with the NFL's Charles Davis. Charles, Tua has been the story of the draft. He will be. We know who's going 1 and 2, and then the draft starts. We know the Lions would like to trade out. We know the Giants would listen to trades. Giants will probably take an offensive tackle. Lions can't take a quarterback there. We know it. They have to stay with their quarterback. They can't trade him. That being said, is it Tua? A team will come up and get him, or do you think the weight of the issues now, the Wonderlic weighs in a little bit, the issues of the medical versus this wonderful talent who comes from a great program, all the stuff that's on the plus side? Do you think he goes as high as we think, or does he, when push comes to shove, does he slip a little bit?
I turned in my last mock draft, and all the smoke that's coming out, as you know, Mike, at this time of year, right? It's not the smoke that announces that we actually have a new pope. It's the black smoke that tells us we got to keep voting. All right, it's not the white smoke. So as I go through all this black smoke and try and figure it out, I left Tua at number 5 to Miami because I just said, okay, if I'm going to keep chasing everything, I don't know if I'm right or wrong. But everything seems to be moving in the direction that the safer pick is Herbert, that the Dolphins may very well move in that direction at 5, which may trigger the slide for Tua because it doesn't seem like the Chargers would have the same interest. And then where's the slide? To me, Jacksonville at 9, if no one else comes up, I think they've got a hard decision because you can talk to me about Gardner Minshew all you want, but if Tua slips down to you at 9, I don't know that you turn that down. And that's where things get interesting. I think Peter King talked about New England coming up to 13 if indeed he slides that far and trading with San Francisco, their old trading partner. A lot of different scenarios. I still think he's the second best quarterback in this draft because of the injury. All right, if he didn't have the injury, we would have a much healthier debate between he and Burrow. But Burrow earned this spot. Tua, to me, still number 2. If a medical checked out, he would be my guy. But I do hear, like you do, that all of a sudden the slide is beginning. Now who gets interested and who wants to make the move up?
You mentioned Jacksonville. A couple of things there. They not only where they might be put in a position, but also they have some players who are very unhappy. They have Fournette's been mentioned a lot. Now, to me, when Ngakoue is going to do what he did today, there comes a point if you're a team, you got to draw the line. You cannot let this guy embarrass you. If he's going to go after the owner's kid, you know what? There comes a point where the owner's got to say, all right, this guy doesn't want to be on my team. Get rid of him. Get him out of here. Enough's enough. He's not the best player in the league. I have to take this abuse, every day from this guy. I'm not taking it anymore. Jaguars have to finally show some respect and get rid of the guy.
What interested me about the tweet exchange today was that Tony Khan, the owner's son, how he concluded it. And you saw it, Mike. And if you're thinking this helped our trade value today, by the way, you got another thing coming, right?
Yep.
So that's one thing. 2, the draft coming up, there aren't a ton of edge rushers, those dynamic edge rushers in this draft. So to me, Ngakoue's value is up for that reason because I feel like if teams haven't made the move now, they want to draft and see if they're able to get one of the guys they covet in the draft, and there aren't many. And if not, now his trade market gets established. Now more people get involved. Leonard Fournette, I think, is in a different spot, Mike, because as a runner, we've now gone through the Gurley got big money, Zeke got big money, what's the payoff phase, and we're back to, I don't know if I'm going to pay it back that kind of money again, but this is a rich running back draft, and it starts in round 2. If I'm Leonard Fournette, he's thinking I'm a former number 1 pick, top 10 guy. I don't think he's viewed that way anymore. I think people are going to draft, see what they get, and I think the market for him is going to be somewhat tepid. I'd be surprised if anybody's thinking there's getting a 2 or a 3. I'd be stunned by that.
I totally agree. First of all, I never trade for anybody's running backs. Number 1, I don't want it. And the same thing with Beckham. If you're Beckham and you're now traded to for the second time, you're on your 3rd team. You're no longer the man anymore. You have moved. You haven't been productive. You can complain about everything you want. You can't stay on the field. Now you can't work with another team. All of a sudden, you're not the guy anymore. Now you got to go prove you're the guy somewhere. You're not the guy anymore. No longer are you the guy who's everybody's number one receiver.
What's interesting in contrast to me is Brandon Cooks making his move around the league. Because this is a kid that I knew in college, Mike, that I thought was as pro-ready and trained to be a pro as I'd seen a young kid do, watching the clips, carrying himself, getting himself ready for the pros, et cetera. And he's had a heck of a career. Now, injuries have become a problem lately because of the concussions. But think about him, back-to-back years, he's a starting receiver in the NFL and in the Super Bowl. New England and the Rams back-to-back years. But how does a talent like that keep moving from team to team to team? At least he's gotten to the Super Bowl and in the playoffs with his teams. Odell Beckham hasn't been able to do that yet.
What do you think?
One time in the playoffs, with the Giants.
What do you think happens with Jameis Winston? What do you think happens with Cam Newton?
I'm stuck. I am so baffled by both of those. I would have told you a month ago that I would have seen Cam Newton in Los Angeles with the Chargers.
Makes sense.
If they're going to play with Tyrod Taylor, you talk about the plus size model, better player, former MVP model, and you and I both know they can't give tickets away to the Chargers out there.
Yep.
So if you're going to have an attraction, if you didn't get Tom Brady, that looked like the one to me. They didn't bite on that one. To me, if I'm Jameis Winston, I would love to get to New England, but there's no money involved in that. New England doesn't have the money to get that done. I'd love to get there and compete and have Bill Belichick kind of mold me a little. But the other place I try and get is Jacksonville. I'd go there and want to compete with Gardner Minshew all day long. Not that Minshew's a bad player, but Winston was the former number one pick in the entire draft. More than enough talent. If he can harness himself, he could actually be a contender for that job there.
How about these Pittsburgh rumors, too, as a guy, if he sits for a year and then takes over for Big Ben? I mean, that could be an interesting spot, too, if he wound up there,
It is. It's a great spot. And that one, I think they'd have to be creative with the money. But between you and me, if I've been the number one pick and I've got that kind of bonus and I've done a pretty decent job of taking care of it, which I think that he and his team have, I would find my way to not let money be an issue. But what a great place to kickstart your career again. Behind Ben, we don't know what's going on with the elbow. He's 38 years old. And with a head coach like Mike Tomlin, to me, that would be an ideal spot. I like that suggestion, Mike.
All right, we're talking with Charles Davis. The Jets and the Giants are looking, and the players are kind of cluster players. The Giants, everyone's got them in these offensive linemen. The Jets could be in an offensive lineman on the other end, or they could be in the first of those wide receivers. You follow the draft closely. You follow college closely. Do you like one of the tackles better than the others?
I was a big Mekhi Becton fan, and I know big sounds like I'm trying to be cute because he's the biggest tackle in this draft. But the diluted test is going to bring into question some things, and some teams are going to have to do some investigating there. Tristan Wirfs from Iowa, love his athletic skills and gifts. And when this whole process started, I thought they might have to kick him inside the guard. That's no longer the case. He's too athletic, and they'll move him from right tackle to left tackle. So he would be my first guy. Andrew Thomas from Georgia is probably the quote-unquote most pro-ready, which after a while I get tired of saying that because it just seems like you're damning a kid with faint praise. But people feel like they know what they're getting with him. They know they can plug him in, be dependable, whatever. The other ones you feel like there's a little bit more of an upside, and maybe they can be sensational, although they might not be from the beginning. So the Giants at 4, look, Dave Gettleman, the GM there, Coach Gettleman, I've known him since I was in high school. He's always told me, Charles, this is a big man's game. That would fit Becton. But if they got any questions about him, it fits Wirfs in a big way as well.
I like Wirfs for them myself. First of all, I like Iowa linemen, and I like Iowa tight ends.
Kirk Ferentz does a great job.
Good coach, tough program. Plus, I like Big Ten linemen anyway. I like Big Ten linemen. I like Ferentz's players. I like Big Ten linemen anyway. Giants have always liked Big Ten linemen. Always have.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so I like that move. Number 2, for the wide receivers, it's funny. You got 3 different styles. You got Lamb, and you got then you got the real fast guy in Ruggs, and then you got the real route runner. Which one do you like the best?
I like Lamb the best out of the 3. Guy scored 32 touchdowns in 3 years. He finds the end zone. And the way the game's played, he knows he has a great sense of space on the field and understanding where people are and where he should be, and finds ways to get open for his quarterback. I'm not saying the other guys don't, but as the game breaks down and these quarterbacks are making second and third reaction moves, that fits CeeDee Lamb's game in a big way. But Mike, it's a sliver between them. You know, like if I don't get CeeDee Lamb and I have to draft Jerry Jeudy, am I going to cry on my milk? No, I'm going to be ecstatic. Am I going to go, if I get Henry Ruggs, I'm going to be ecstatic. But I can go deeper than that and be happy with receivers. Justin Jefferson from LSU, Brandon Ayuk from Arizona State, Laviska Shenault from Colorado, T. Higgins from Clemson. I keep going. It is a loaded wide receiver group, and that's why some teams who are really hot on receiver, they may wait a little bit if they have to get another position. Like if you got a chance to get one of the top 4 offensive tackles versus a receiver, your tiebreaker's probably the 4 tackles would be gone quickly. I can get good receiver maybe later in the draft.
The Jets could be in that position where they might be. So. They could take the last tackle, which I think they would, and then they can go either trade back up or just on the second round get themselves a wide receiver.
Absolutely agree with that one. If they have someone in mind later, you can make that trade, get back in. But I don't know that you'll absolutely have to, because a couple of guys that I mentioned may get pushed to the second round because of medical. Laviska Shenault, I think, is a first-rounder all day long, but he's had the core injury. He's had a couple of other dings. He didn't run as fast at the combine, I think, because of the core injury. He may go the second round, and I've already called him Deebo Samuel too, and that's where Deebo came out of last year. Second-round guy, went to San Francisco. They have similar play styles, similar physiques.
Who's the guy in this draft who you like, who maybe is a little off the radar?
There's a corner from Louisiana Tech named Amik Robertson. I'm big on ball hawks, Mike. This kid, remember when Kevin Byard came out and at Middle Tennessee State, didn't get invited to the combine?
Right.
19 career picks. He looks like he's patrolling center field pretty well for the Titans right now. There's a second kid last year went to Washington, Jimmy Moreland, out of James Madison. 16, 17 career picks, while at James Madison ended up becoming a starter the back half of the year. Ball hawks always intrigued me. Amik Robertson would be a nickel-type pass cover and a ball hawk as well. I think he'll probably be in a second-round conversation, and I think he'll stick somewhere and play right away.
How about the Notre Dame tight end?
Like him a lot. He's the best combo tight end in the thing, and we have to define them now. And combo versus pass catcher, but I think he's got more juice as a pass catcher than we give him credit for. And that Notre Dame group, remember how you talked about the Iowa offensive linemen, and we love them because of what Ferentz does? Look at the line of Notre Dame tight ends that have come into the league, and most of them have been productive. He's a kid who has that. I love the kid out of Florida Atlantic, Harrison Bryant, for his pass-catching ability. But as far as being a combo blocker, pass catcher, Komet's going to be the first one. But I don't know that we'll get a tight end in the first round.
Are you a love guy as far as him going in the first half of the first round, or you got him going later than that?
Last mock draft and the one I finished at about 4:30 this morning, I think I've got him. Last one I had him going 23 to New England. This one 24 to New Orleans. So I've got him on the bottom part. And don't be surprised if he slips even more. I'm going to look at Green Bay at 30 and wonder if they do the same thing like they did with Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was there. Aaron's older than Brett was at that time. These guys weren't there then, but they were trained by the guy who did that then. This could be an interesting deal to see how that part goes down, because Green Bay is going to be looking for that successor, but I don't know that they're going to go out of their way. But if he drops down, he's the one. And in this draft, Mike, Jalen Hurts might be this year's Lamar Jackson or Teddy Bridgewater, meaning someone trades back in at the bottom of the first round to get that fifth-year option on a quarterback.
Can you think he can throw? Now, listen, you love how he handled himself. Yep. You love how resilient he was. You know he's a good leader. We know that. A tough kid, high-quality kid. Yep. I don't care about his Wonderlic either. He didn't score high either, but I don't care. But I just wonder about him, whether he can throw it enough to play in the league.
I felt like that got better this year, and I will tell you this is one person, right? Me. Dak Prescott, I was on record his junior year in college saying, I don't know. Senior year, I thought I saw as much improvement from junior to senior year, throwing the ball, leading his team, carrying a team. They got the number one in the country, Mike, Mississippi State, and this was in late November. Like, how did this happen? This kid did it. I see a lot of those same characteristics with Hurts, and I thought his throwing improved. That year at Oklahoma was big for him, just being able to throw, which is what they did. Yeah, he's got some stuff to work on and clean up, but let's not forget this. Son of a coach.
Not only that, he showed more quality.
So many people.
And he showed such quality as a person, too. I mean, just enormous quality. I mean, never complained at all.
The way he handled the Tua thing, when he got benched at halftime national championship, and then came back and bailed Tua out.
Yeah, never complained. And waited a whole year. The whole year to bail him out, and never complained once. And then did what he did in Oklahoma. The guy is. I mean, listen, you'd like to have him on your team just for those reasons. I mean, the guy is going to be good for any team he's got. He's going to be a good guy to have around.
Phillip Rivers grew up son of a coach. We talked about that all the time. That's where that throwing motion came from with the ball and this and that. Kellen Moore came out, son of a coach, the whole thing. I don't think it's been talked about enough with Jalen Hurts. His dad coached him. He came out of the womb drawing plays and wondering what a cover two was and the whole thing. Played for his dad in high school and carried that on to all the things that you just talked about.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy, because he's a guy you could see having a career for sure. I mean, when you see guys like Winston who can't find a job. I mean, Winston has thrown 120 touchdown passes in his career, and he can't find a job. I mean, I understand he's thrown 90 interceptions, okay? And I understand he got a lot of money. And I know a couple of guys said to me they don't like that it's never his fault. Like, he doesn't seem to want to take any blame for anything. I mean, listen, he threw for 5,000 yards last year. I mean, and threw for 33 touchdowns. That's a great year. I mean, I understand that, but he also threw 30 interceptions. So, I mean, but when a guy like him can't find a job, it's hard to find a job in this league.
It certainly is. And when Cam Newton can't find a job, a former MVP that you could build around and do a lot of things with your offense, and showed progression later in his career with Norv Turner. That's a whole nother question mark as well. I think some of that is injury. And the other part, too, Mike, is if you take on Cam, with his personality and people drawn to him and the organization better be ready for a debate.
I worry about him because he's so used to being pampered and he's so used to being the guy. I don't know how he would handle anything else. I'd be more comfortable with Winston because Cam was such a big star and has always acted like such a big star. I don't know if he could handle it.
I'd have to sit down and look him in the eye and talk about what we're doing. But you're better off if you're going to bring him in that he is going to be the guy, as opposed to bringing him in that is not good, that's not sure, and you're not clear. Because I just think the battle lines get drawn differently that way. Winston, I think he understands where he has to go, what he has to get done. The question he has to answer, and this is where I would argue with the critics who say he never takes on, responsibility. Right. Look at the press conferences over time. It's almost the same one every time. I know I've got to be better. I know I've got to do this. Well, do it. I mean, that's kind of what people want out of you because the talent is just too obvious. They scored almost 600 points.
No, listen, but he does listen. And I thought he was going to be a good player. I really did. Now he's been a good player. He's just also been just a mistake-prone player of unbelief. He's good for both teams. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody has stopped him. That's for sure. But he stopped himself plenty of times with those interceptions.
And what he has to explain to people when they sit him down is this: I don't care what you think about Dirk Cutter as a head coach. He's known as a quarterback developer. Bruce Arians is the quarterback whisperer.
Yep.
If it didn't work with those two guys, what are we going to do? Jameis, why is it going to be different this time?
Yeah, and also Jameis thought, well, listen, it took Tom Brady to replace me. Well, listen, nobody cares about that right now. I mean, that's it. That it took Tom Brady. So it doesn't matter. But that's an awful good quarterback to have bouncing around the league right now, though.
It is, and the flip side of that discussion, I would think, would be, but it's a 43-year-old Tom Brady replacing the former number one pick in the draft. We shouldn't even be having this discussion.
That's very true. Detroit at 3. You went to Miami at 5 with Tua, which I understand.
Yep.
Detroit's made it open that they'll trade the pick. If they keep the pick, everybody thinks they'll take the corner. Okay, I would guess they would. Detroit, though, can you see them doing something different or something goofy or something that changes the draft with that third pick?
I can see them doing what you posited earlier, which is entertaining the pick, and if they could get out of being at 3 and drop down to a level where they can get with who they want with that first pick and then pick up a second one, I think they'd do it in a heartbeat. They are under the direction, as we well know, from their management to play meaningful games.
No, they got to win next year, and obviously, and their quarterback is a good player. He's just got to stay healthy.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I think that would be the thing. But didn't you find it interesting that the story is breaking big? And here's the rookie coach, Joe Judge, with the Giants. They're very open about all these conversations with Justin Herbert. Now, having drafted Daniel Jones, I don't see that happening.
I don't buy it for a second.
By the fact that they're doing it, this is the time I'm finally hearing them say, if you're interested, we might actually move off of 4 because Coach Gettleman has not done that before. We might actually move down and pick up someone if you're interested in coming up and finding your guy.
See, this is where this is what I talk about, and we're talking with Charles Davis, NFL game and draft analyst for many, many years in the NFL. This is where the league and the draft stuff is complete utter nonsense. There is not a chance in the world that the Giants are taking a quarterback. Not a chance in the world. And if anyone, the Giants would be admitting to you they have no plan and no clue if they would take a quarterback. After what they did, they kept Eli Manning on. They took Eli Manning on the roster for $20 million last year and never played him. And then drafted a quarterback who they probably could have got with their second first-round pick on their first-round pick, and he turned out to be an okay player. If they turned around and took a quarterback this year, you'd want their heads checked. I mean, you'd basically admit they don't have a clue what they're doing.
Totally with you. They're not taking the quarterback. They're just trying to signal to people, and if someone's crazy enough to buy it, I don't know that anyone will. But here's the other part.
You're a lousy poker player if you think the Giants are taking a quarterback.
Right. But other thing, too, Mike, you know Patriots, and you know what they've done in the past. Joe Judge, one of those Patriot people. They've always done a terrific job of checking out every quarterback crop that comes through, even if they have no need for it, in case down the road that guy comes available, or they got to play against him in a big game. They want to know as much about them. I think this is part of that Patriot process with Joe Judge, getting to know these young quarterbacks as they enter the league.
Well, I'll tell you what's an interesting thing here is that Judge got the Bill Belichick seal of approval, which is why he's why he's with the Giants. Gettleman has always considered the draft his baby, as you know, because you know him well. Okay.
Yes.
Now, it's going to be interesting to see how much input the head coach has into the pick because, that's always been Gettleman's baby. And now here's a first-year head coach who clearly has the backing of the organization as the guy who is the face of the franchise going forward.
And having met Joe Judge and spent time with him for the first time.
And I don't know Joe Judge from a hole in the wall. Yeah. I've never even met Joe Judge.
Mike, the first time I met him and spent time with him was at the Combine this year. I came away very, very impressed by meeting him, spending time, conversation. And my impression, and look, my impression is worth, nothing. But my impression is that he and Coach Gettleman are going to work pretty well together on this. Yes, this is Coach Gettleman's baby. There's no doubt. But I think that he will listen to input from Joe Judge without question. And Joe Judge will also take counsel from Coach Gettleman. I think they'll be in lockstep at least for this year, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
And I would think that will lead you to listen, the Giants are in a position where if they do anything with their talent right now, considering that there's not an incredible edge pass rusher available at 4, with that being the case, there's no way that if they do anything but take a tackle, I will be flabbergasted.
I say not the only, but that organization, the DNA, the fans' DNA is on the defensive side.
I know, but I just don't think there's a player there that, like I said, if there was a guy there, I don't think there's a player there that you can just say automatic, he's the guy.
The one that the fans would get amped up for and are intrigued by is the kid out of Clemson and Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah, except,
But Isaiah Simmons is
yeah.
a jack of all trades.
Yeah, that kind of guy might not even play. Yeah, he might not even
Right.
play all 3 downs, that kind of thing. So I still think they got a chance to lock in a 10-year tackle. You got to take him. I think you got to take him.
Yeah, I'm with you because if you spent the draft capital on the quarterback last year, you've got to start taking care of him and start finding ways for Saquon Barkley to run without running into someone's back and having to bounce out.
And then you got the interesting thing there, Charles, and that is it a big, strong, healthy Herbert, or is it Tua? I mean, that's really the interesting thing there. Is it the big, strong quarterback who's healthy, or is it the kid who's got a lot of talent? Now, some guys, listen, I know guys who don't love Tua, and I love Tua.
Yep.
I think Tua is going to be if he's healthy, I think he's going to be a Hall of Fame player. But I know guys who say, I don't like little quarterbacks who get hurt, okay? Yes, he's incredibly talented. He's incredibly accurate. I don't love guys who are, by most NFL standards, undersized. If Lawrence is the prototype, Tua is undersized, okay? Lawrence is central casting, 6'6", body by God, the whole thing. He's going to have Hall of Fame grade next year. Tua is 1.5 maybe?
6'1",
yeah. And is a lot like a Montana Breeze, Russell Wilson type of quarterback, and with a great accuracy and a great feel for the game, and a great physical ability. But he's also brittle as brittle can be. So, I mean, that's why I understand someone who would pass on him, because he's had 4 major injuries in 2 years. I mean, that's a lot.
It is, and that's why this year, more so than any, where you don't get a chance to do every last, check your boxes, right? You can't do everything with him because you couldn't touch him these last couple of months because of COVID and everything else. You're taking a little bit of a leap of faith, but part of you is going to be sitting there saying, am I passing on what I think, as you said, can be that type of a talent? And with Herbert, do people feel that way, or do they just feel he's a safe pick, who I think will be a very good player?
I think he's a safe pick myself. Tua is,
and that's what people.
Tua can be a
debating.
Star. The other kid's a safe pick, I think.
And that's where the debate kicks in. And if you're Miami, and I know they're trying to sell, I shouldn't say trying to sell. There's been that discussion that with the 3 picks they have, they may not even take a quarterback at 5. They'll go get him. I don't buy that at all. They can't go back to their fan base. They can't go back to their organization and not take the best swing at the top quarterback left after Burrow, to me, in good faith. I just don't see that happening. They're going to have to figure out if they have to move up, if they have to do anything, can they stick at 5? But they should be taking the next swing at the number 2 quarterback.
All right. Well, listen, appreciate it. Enjoy your week this week. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much, as always.
You do the same.
Thank you,
Stay
Charles.
safe, Mike.
Thank you. Charles Davis, back after this.
Mike's on. He's ready to go. On the Fan. New York Sports Radio. Mike's on. Mike's on. He'll get you the sports any way that he can. It's Mike Francesa on the Fan. Sports Radio 66 and 101.9 FM. WFAN.
All right, we come to you this evening, a little after 6 o'clock on this Monday, the 20th day of April. Brought to you by Casamigos Tequila, as always, brought to you by those who drink it on this Monday evening. And you're probably going to settle in tonight and watch a little more of the Bulls as they take it through the last dance and get ready for the draft, which is Thursday, and hear all the nonsense about how everybody's going to do this and take that and trade this and do this and do this. And we all know it's a lot of craziness and a lot of nonsense and a lot of smoke streams and everything else. But we will have the draft on Thursday. We'll be with you 6 to 7 on Thursday night, Friday night, leading up to both draft shows on the Fan. So we'll be on 6, 7, both days for a full hour before the drafts on Thursday and Friday night. Now, and as I open up tonight, and as I do in the backdrop, I watch the press conference from the White House, having watched this afternoon, seeing the headline that Trump and Andrew Cuomo will meet tomorrow, watch all the division, all the chaos. How we open. Are we ready to open? Everybody trying to blame everybody else. Everyone trying to say they had it right and they had it wrong. You had it right, you had it wrong, you had it right, you had it wrong. The blame game gets us nowhere. I understand it's an election year, but it gets us nowhere. It doesn't get us back. It doesn't help one bit. We are a country so badly divided, it never stops. And now, as you watch these protests crop up, as people, protest to get back to their lives, not worried about whether somebody is sick in that city, not worried whether somebody is sick in that county, not worried about whether their actions impact somebody else. It's sad to watch. And sports is our end of the business. And, I think back, and so many times people want to use the past to kind of measure where we are now and say, well, we did this after 9/11. We did this after 9/11. Well, sports brought us back after 9/11. Sports will not bring us back this time. It can't. After 9/11, after the shock, we were angry. We were incredibly unified. We wanted to settle the score. We wanted to see our country get rebuilt, and we were going to use whatever we could use to be together. We were unified. Everybody was together, and we utilized sports in a big way. 10 days later, that game with Piazza hitting that huge home run off Corse not only unified a city, it helped unify a nation. People cried after that game. That game was an incredibly cathartic game in so many ways, and it helped bring us back. Just like that year, the World Series brought us back, and all the football games where we waved the flag brought us back, and cheered all the firemen and all the policemen and all the people who were there and all the people who helped, and the people who gave so much. And we all remember what it was like that year and how much sports played that role. Sports won't play that role this year because we don't know when sports is coming back. And we're not coming back all at once. When we came back that year, we all came back the same day. Boom, we're back. We're back. Our games are back. We're back. We're back to work. We're unified. We're all pulling in the same direction. And it was like that whole fall. Yeah, we took a big hit that year, but you know what? It was like that whole fall. And now we're looking for a way to come back now, and we don't know how to come back. First of all, we don't have a plan. Not one that works. You hear 5 different doctors, they got 5 different plans. You hear 5 different politicians, they got 5 different plans. You hear Pelosi, she's got one plan. You hear Cuomo, he's got one plan. You hear Trump, he's got one plan. Testing's important. You're in charge of testing. You're in charge of testing. Can't afford testing. You're in charge of testing. I'm not in charge of testing. You're in charge of testing. You're asking for too much. You want too much. You're asking for too much. You want me to thank you. I'm not going to thank you. This is what we live with every day. While everybody blames everybody else and nothing good is happening. And now what we're seeing is in cities where we are still closed because we have virus and hospitals overrun and people dying. You got people now arguing with people about opening up their states. We got protests. We got disruptions. We got all kinds of craziness all across the land here. And we don't have anything remotely unified. And what usually unifies us, which is sports, is not there to help. Sports is a great healer. It's a great unifier. Because we forget our divisions and we throw ourselves into a game and we throw ourselves into an event and we all cheer the flag and we all realize that we're one country and we believe in some things that unify us rather than everything that divides us. And sports has always been able to do that. And this time it can't because it's going to be not the first thing back, it's going to be the last. Because this time, we're not all coming back at the same time. We're going to come back in drips and drabs. Some people have never left because they had to stock the shelves at the grocery store. They had to be the nurses or the doctors or the technicians or the people who clean the hospitals. And they're like, hey, I haven't been home. I've been working 6-7 days a week. The rest of us have been home. Some of us will stay home. Some of us will stay home and work. Some of us will stay home because we don't have to work. Some of us will stay home with the kids. Some of us will go back to work little by little. But there's so many things that we don't know what we can do and can't do right now. Can we get on a crowded train? Can we get on a crowded subway? Can we go in a crowded elevator? Those are things you might not have a choice in. Otherwise, you don't have a way to get to work. The things you do have a choice in, whether you want to go into that restaurant, whether you want to go into that movie theater, whether you want to go to that Broadway play or that concert or that game, you do have a choice in. And those things are going to be slow to come back. So they won't be things we rally around this time. And on top of that, we have an exceedingly divisive presidential campaign, which leads to this enormous blame game that doesn't help do anything except split us in all kinds of directions. State versus state, area versus area, red versus blue, right down the line. And on top of it, what we still have is anxiety and uncertainty. We had that the day this started. We have it tonight. We don't have a testing program yet. We all know it. But we don't own up to it. We can't own up to it because you know what? If the president ever owned up to it, he would get slaughtered. And he knows that. So he's got to act like he's got everything under control because if he doesn't, he's going to get attacked 9 ways from Tuesday. Because that's the way they're playing this game right now. That you have to understand. Because you know what's at stake. Everyone knows what's at stake. And instead, we just get more confused. The messages are completely mixed. No one knows which end is up, who's fighting for what, who's right, who's wrong. What we do know is we have an economy that's in a dangerous place that needs to be reopened. We need to get people back out of their houses and healthy again and to work again. And we need to somehow, some way, get a little bit of normalcy back. We're not going to get a lot right now until we get some therapeutics, until we get some medicines that work, until we get eventually a vaccine. Well, until we can knock this virus off or at least hold it at bay. What we have is the same thing we've had from the beginning. We have a whole lot of questions and not a lot of answers. And now, in the beginning, it was ventilators. That's all you heard was ventilators. Now, it's testing. All you hear is testing. When are we going to be back? Who knows? Are we going to be back properly? Are we going to stay open? And when can people get back to the things they love? Whether it's going to a movie on a Friday night, going to a ball game on a Saturday night, going to a restaurant on a Sunday night, going to a Broadway play, or even just taking a train to the city. Things we took for granted forever now seem like luxuries that we have no idea when we're going to get them back. But first we need something, a thread that could unify us. And that's where sports has always come in. That Piazza home run, whether you were a Met fan, not a Met fan, whether you were someone who pulled for the firemen or pulled for the cops or the EMS workers that night, everybody loved everybody. And that home run brought the whole city to tears and brought everybody back. A couple weeks later, we had a World Series. Did the same thing. Yanks wound up losing it, but it was a wild couple of weeks. The city and the country threw themselves into that, just like they threw themselves into the NFL games and the football games that fall. Right now, we don't know when we're going to have any of that. And sports is not going to play that unifying role right now. But what has to happen here is there has to somehow be a way that these guys can put the blame away long enough to put together a plan that can work so that we understand what we're doing here and how we're going to start this one foot in front of the other. Like I said, Fauci said it's not going to be like throwing the light back on. It's not going to happen all at once. That's the understatement of the year. It's not going to happen all at once. Everybody's not going back to work the same day. Companies not going to want everybody back the same day. And we don't know what and how much of this we can push before the virus rears its head again. Because those numbers, if you look, they're going up slower, but they still go up every day. And it's not just nursing homes, although those are very, very hard to watch. 772,000 Americans, 240,000 New Yorkers, 80,000 people from Jersey, and 41,000 dead. By tomorrow, it'll be 42,000. Hard to take, but harder to take when we're at each other's throats. And harder to take when we're trying to find someone to blame. And if you're always trying to dodge the blame and always trying to blame someone else, it's hard to lead. And right now, we need someone to lead. And we need to get behind someone if they take a chance to lead. Because we all got to pull in the same direction or it's not going to work. It's not going to be as easy this time as it was that time. We took a vicious blow, but you know what? We all got back on the same page after that. This time, it's a little different. What we have a month in is uncertainty and anxiety. We don't have a whole lot of answers. Listen to the doctors. They don't have a whole lot of answers. They have a whole lot of theories because they've never been through this before. And now we need a plan. Hopefully that's what's being formulated as we speak. One that we can all get behind. And then try to put one foot in front of the other and see if we can get there little by little. It's not going to be all in one day. It's not going to be 40,000 10 days later at Shea Stadium. Or 48,000 at Yankee Stadium 2 weeks later. It's going to be harder than that this time. Back after this. One of the doctors out in L.A. today, who's connected with the L.A. Department of Public Health and USC, says that he believes that the real number in the county of Los Angeles who could have already had the virus could be anywhere from 220 to 440,000 people. Now, the numbers in California have been very low. They haven't done a lot of testing. They've done a lot more testing here. But in his opinion, the adult population, now, some of them could have had it a while ago. He's not saying everybody has it right now. But he's saying when they're tested for antibodies that it could be upwards of 400,000 people in the county of Los Angeles who will test positive for the virus. If that's true around the country, that would put this number in the staggering millions of people who have it or have had it. So the more we learn about this, the crazier it gets. That's why I keep saying to you, uncertainty and anxiety, because we scrambled from the beginning with this. We got a late start. Okay, again, let's not blame anyone. We got a late start. We didn't get a lot of testing done. New York got more than most. New York got a lot of testing compared to other places, which is why our numbers are so much higher. That's the only reason. It has nothing even to do with how close together we live. It really had to do with the fact that we did more tests than anybody else. But you're seeing these reports now where they start to test, and these guys who say, wait a second, these numbers are so far off. And then you hear numbers like this, which I have no idea if the guy is not a quack. I have no idea if he's telling the truth or he has anything valid to say. But, I mean, that puts the numbers at a staggeringly higher rate. And, you see, the president's getting killed about testing every day. So he's going to tell you, oh, we're flying. Listen, they're trying to catch up. They are trying to catch up. That's all I can do right now. They didn't get a fast start. He can't tell you that because it'll get used against them, but he didn't get a fast start on testing. They're trying to catch up. As they catch up, what they're going to find is the numbers they had were not incredibly accurate because they didn't use testing, which is the only way of accurately forecasting where we've been and where we're headed. with this disease, and we haven't done a lot of it around the country. So we're going to get numbers that are a little different than we thought, maybe a lot larger than we thought. Then the scarier part of this whole thing is what you can do and can't do when you start to emerge from your home, what you can do and can't do, and stay healthy. That becomes a very large question, which is why a lot of people will, I think, stay home if they can. If they're in a position where they can, they will. If they can work from home, they will. If they can do their job from home, they will. The people who can will take that and run with it. And we're not going to have schools probably back open until next September. So you're going to have that to take into account too. So we won't have normal traffic in terms of cars nor public transportation populated with people the way we normally would, which will be a positive in the short term, but it won't feel like real. And then you have the idea of how you get back to events, whether it's concerts or plays or movies or just eating in a restaurant or obviously ball games, which is something that we have a great interest in and does not look good for the short term. Now, you see the reports, President, tremendous progress on vaccines and therapeutics. Problem with that is he gives you tremendous progress on everything. So you don't know what's real and what's not because he feels he has to do that. You have to do a little more research yourself to see what there is real progress on or not. I've heard about people who've said they took the hydroxy and it worked. I've heard people who have used the remdesivir and it's worked. So that doesn't really give you hope. I don't know that they're always going to work. I don't know if they have any side effects. I don't know if it's the best that we can do, but at least it looks like there's things that have had some level of efficiency on people. So that's at least something you can hold your hat on. They have worked in some cases. There are people walking around because they took these drugs. So that's a positive. That's a big positive. And the day that we have a vaccine that we know works and we're working to get it mass produced will be a very big day for this country. The same day we have a therapeutic that makes people realize they're not going to get killed by this, that will be a very big day. Then we'll start to move back towards some normalcy and take a deep breath. Until then, we're going to be on eggshells. There's no way around it. Listen, we didn't do anything to earn this. But sometimes life throws you a haymaker. This is a haymaker. This is one nobody saw coming and one that, hey, if you would explain to people that this was what we were going to wind up with, nobody would have believed it. Nobody would have believed it for a second. If you'd sat everybody down and said, hey, here's where, just let me map out what your life's going to be like from March 20th to April 20th. Everyone would say, what are you, nuts? You're watching too many movies. Nobody would have bought it for a second. But that's where we are. And you have to understand it's something where we don't have a lot of background in it. We don't have a lot of answers. And we have to try to take it one little scary step at a time because we don't have any other answers. And the playbook for this going forward is one that we're putting together day by day right now. There isn't a playbook. We're creating a playbook with trial and error. And that's never an easy thing to do. So hang in there, be safe. Try and show a little consideration and a little patience. And we'll take it one day at a time. That's all we can do right now. Hope the next day the numbers keep